to be a talent-first company means that you truly have to be that, whether that talent is deciding to be independent or permanent. Are you prepared to adapt on your side to get the skills that you need and want? And that's where you will build your brand of being freelancer friendly.
Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Outsized Advantage. I'm Niclas Thelander, founder of Outsized. I've got with me today Johann van Niekerk, our CEO and head of Africa.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. Today, I thought we're going to speak about how companies, in particular companies in some of the more kind of traditional industries, can attract highly skilled talent by going into the independent part of the market. At Outsized, we work with a lot of different types of clients. We work with strategy consulting firms, normal management consultancies, and kind of accountancy firms, and then with a wide range of enterprise clients in different sectors and subsectors. And they have kind of, if you look at the permanent market, they can attract talent more or less easily, if you put it like that. But maybe to kick things off, could you maybe talk us through in kind of broad strokes what you see in the market out there in general in terms of the balance between supply and demand of talent?
Like any marketplace, it's moving up and down on both sides. And so it's not, I don't think it's one answer, it's probably many answers. There are certain core skills which have been working well with independents, and many independents work in those areas like technology, data. And there we generally see a pretty decent supply. I wouldn't say an oversupply, but a good supply. But in many other areas, there's definitely not enough supply, and the demand is quite high. But what we do also see is that it was a function of the market not being as organized as it could be. And that's where a business like Outsized comes in, is to establish this marketplace. So we, for instance, have many people who are currently in permanent roles, quite keen to move into independent consulting, sitting on the sidelines waiting for that first chunky piece of work that they can move over into. And we saw a big shift in this post-COVID, where many people really enjoyed working independently, working from home, the freedom that gave them, the work-life balance, a far more of an outputs-driven way of working and being managed. And so, yes, I would say, broadly speaking, probably a bit more demand than supply if we look across our markets. But within that, it differs based on the particular skills that are being looked for.
Because you have obviously some areas which are very much kind of sought after, right? Where there's a shortage both for perm and independent talent.
100%. And so we do see this with many of our clients now, the realization that to be a talent-first company means that you truly have to be that, whether that talent is deciding to be independent or permanent. Also, these days we see that it's quite fluid, actually, between the two. We have people who are working as independents, go perm, and then go back to being an independent. So it's no longer that rigid that I know I'm going to find what I'm looking for in the permanent market, or if I can't find it there, I have to go to the independent market. It's often between the two, and the question is, are you prepared to adapt on your side to get the skills that you need and want?
So if you're a company in a traditional sector, a sector that might kind of have a bit of a stuffy reputation, right? They may struggle to attract certain types of people who wouldn't naturally be looking maybe for permanent employment, at least in those organizations or in those sectors. Where should they start? How can they attract the kind of skills that they actually need in order to take their business forward?
Yeah. Well, let's start from the beginning and assume that they have come to the conclusion that they do actually want to make use of independence. So that's not a given always, but let's say you've come to the conclusion that it makes sense for a proportion of my talent to be on a contract basis. Okay, what is it that independents want? And what we've seen is that very often, while the brand matters, the particular piece of work, the project, is what matters more. Because what independents are doing is they are building up a portfolio of experience. On the perm side, we also talk about this at the moment. It's a portfolio career. You're going to work at various companies and develop different skills over time. It's even more pronounced amongst independents. So they are looking for projects that they can work in where they can deploy their skills, where they can show clear outcomes, where they know what they're doing and where it's going to be fun. That's really what they want. So if you as a company want to be accessing them, I think you should think about that I need to have my processes and my value proposition, a freelancer value proposition set up such that the projects that I'm putting out there for independents to work on are well-defined, they're scoped out, they're interesting, that they can achieve success. That's a good starting point, I would say. And that's where you will build your brand of being freelancer friendly. Okay,
so having a thought through and kind of explicit focus on what is it that we want to offer to independents, to freelancers.
And it's obviously more than that. So we can't just put out an advert, so to speak, and say, well, here's a really interesting project. It's also the entire experience of them dealing with you. So we've spoken about this where you should be thinking about right up front, is this well scoped out and understood with clear deliverables? Then when you start the process of going out to find an independent to work for you, what does that recruitment process look like? Have I just upped and lifted what I'm using on my perm side, or have I actually sat down and said, what is the best way to quickly make a decision that does not put me at risk, but allows me to access talent in a quick and efficient manner? And then how am I onboarding them? And am I setting them up for success? And this is not about doing favors. This is about making sure that your organization is set up to make the most of independent talent that is out there. And it's all of these things that will add to this reputation that you will build of being freelancer first or freelancer friendly.
Interesting. And in terms of that setting up and having kind of an organization that's geared towards working efficiently and effectively with independents, what else should they be doing, or what else can they do to make sure that actually happens in reality?
I think you need to recognize that there are reasons why people have made the decision to be independent. What are they looking for? They're looking for things, as we already said, sort of project-based or outcomes-based work. They are typically far more independent. So the sort of rigidity that you might have had around 9 to 5 or clocking in, clocking out and such like that just doesn't work for independents. So the flexibility that you would want to build into both what you offer them and how you interact with them. I think you also need to be thinking through aspects like how you contract and the actual rates and that you're prepared to pay, and the flexibility around that. Obviously, on the permanent side of things, they're exclusively working for you, whereas the ability for them also to potentially not work 100% for you, to have some flexibility around the hours that they work, that's all aspects that are important to an independent. And so, I think if you understand the mind of an independent, you will set up your processes and your approach and your ultimately your brand appropriately.
And for us, we often match clients to independents for relatively long-term and full-time kind of contracts. What's the normal situation when an independent is with a company for, let's say, 6 to 12 months or even longer sometimes, do they take part in like professional development activities? Do they even want to be part of that? You know, what do you see out there?
Ultimately, talent is one thing, and how exactly you contract them or how they prefer to be dealt with is secondary to that. The best employers out there integrate independence into their teams. They're made to feel part of the team. If there's a team lunch, they go out. You know, if they're having some sort of training, they're allowed to go to it. Many large corporate these days have online training, for instance, that everybody can access. Allowing the independents to access that in their own time is also important. But many of these training modules and team builds and things like that, including them in that is just smart business. It's just making them work that much more efficiently. Ultimately, it means they communicate better, they know who to deal with, they understand everybody, they work well, the collaboration just works. And so yes, I think you don't just deal with them as if you take off a piece of work and you give it to them to work on and they're off on their own and they must come and deliver it. Sure, that might be the case, but how they are made to feel part of the organization is very, very important.
So if we look at our markets, how, you know, where are we in terms of maturity, in terms of having an explicit kind of freelance value proposition?
On balance, I'd say we're still in the early days. It's definitely growing, as we can see. It's, however, not established as a market norm. We can by no means say that all organizations see independent talent as a crucial part of their talent composition. And even within the market of those who do use, it's a mixed bag in terms of the usage, which is just how much are they making use of independence and how well they're doing it. So have they set up their processes to do it properly? Have they thought about their value proposition to independence? So some are really getting it right in terms of they're engaging and allowing it to happen, and so there is a demand. But others are getting it right in terms of the manner in which they're doing it. And so there's a golden opportunity for almost any organization at any stage now to really leapfrog almost any other company out there and get both of these aspects right. And
especially then maybe in these kind of industries that struggle to attract permanent talent in, you know, it could be in certain technology areas or strategy or, you know, design, whatever it might be, right? Yeah. No, interesting.
And we are at a stage where, because this is a growing market, top talent just has more options. And that's great, because it means that you can access them and they are to be found where the independents are. And if you come with a more well-thought, well-defined value proposition and process, then you can access that talent in a way that others potentially can't, just because they haven't set themselves up and thought about this from beginning to end. And so there's a golden opportunity again.
Oh, fantastic! I think that's a very good end to this episode. There's hope out there, and you can, by doing some of these basics right, by doing that, have an explicit focus on that, you're already ahead of most of your competitors. And
absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Johann.
Great
Good
pleasure.
speaking to you, and until next time.
Yes.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.